Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar on unlocking the benefits of an identity and access management roadmap. I'm Jim Marshall, and with me today is my colleague, Ron Beauron. For today's presentation, attendees are in listen-only mode. You may ask a question at any time during the presentation by using the GoToMeeting questions feature. We'll answer those and all your additional questions at the end of the presentation. So let's begin. In this session, we'll cover an identity and access management overview, why we need an IAM roadmap, and we'll expand on several key areas to unlock those benefits, and questions and answers at the end. This diagram is a high-level view of the life cycle of a user identity, from onboarding through transfers and promotion to offboarding. There are events and business processes that occur to manage accounts and access. At the center of it all are actually many people needed to request, approve, and administer all the access needed for joiners, movers, and leavers throughout the organization. And this is where identity and access management platforms are used to reduce the risk and cost associated with managing the worker lifecycle in relation to enterprise systems. But beyond basic provisioning, IAM has moved to a security role, and here's why. As we look at today, the complexity and scale of managing users and their resources has increased. You're now managing more user identities with a variety of relationships to your enterprise. Running the business at a competitive level has expanded the application portfolio. And embracing digital transformation has added more technology into the infrastructure. And in trying to manage that challenge, businesses are seeing the warning signs. Manual processes aren't always perfect. Security assessments have identified gaps. Audits have produced findings, all of which increase the risk profile of the organization if we don't manage and govern it properly. When we put IAM into a maturity model and assess a company's current state, IAM initiatives can be identified that will move a company up the maturity curve to establish a stronger security posture over time. This maturity framework helps establish a strategy to progress IAM towards long-term maturity, where it can deliver centralized user management, automation of the identity lifecycle, roles and resources for those accounts, and establish centralized compliance and auditing and reporting. But the statistics are against us, as greater than 50% of IAM projects fail the first time. And even when the implementation is successful, 4 out of 5 executives say their IAM systems don't deliver enough value. So, how do we get on the right side of the percentages? That begins with an IAM roadmap. Let's talk about what an identity management roadmap offers you. Before you set off, you're asking yourself 2 questions. And let's equate this to hiking. Say you want to hike the Appalachian Trail. You can sit and think of what you'll need. You'll also want to know, where can I resupply my water and food? Where are the rest stops? Where can I get help along the way? You'll also want to find someone who's made that journey several times and ask, what lessons have they learned? What were they unprepared for? At Idenhaus, we've been both the traveler and the map maker. We've made this journey many times. It's easy to get stuck when you're overwhelmed with options and choices. And when a decision is irreversible, the biggest risk is in moving too fast. When you work out the steps to get to the target in mind, you'll improve your results. Creating an IAM roadmap is an important first step in helping organizations reap the full benefits of their IAM advancement, as well as driving organizational understanding and support. As part of developing the roadmap, there should be specific objectives that the effort achieves. These are the outcomes the customers look for. These will gain buy-in and alignment of your stakeholders. Which brings us to our first key benefit on stakeholders. From this list of potential stakeholders for an IAM program, you'll see that this is not a technical exercise. It involves the business, both its processes and its policies, not just technology. Your IAM program will need a stakeholder team, and the roadmap engagement facilitates this in several ways. You've enlisted your stakeholders, and the kickoff is the first opportunity to share the vision and build support for the plan. Continuing activities of interviews and collaboration increases the participation of the stakeholders. This unlocks the opportunities, the advantages that they're looking for, and stakeholders with a voice to improve the process become active participants. The roadmap is a shared plan aimed to enable and inform your stakeholders. Ron, any experience you could share on the impact to stakeholders?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, so when you're working with the organization, a lot of times when you're meeting with them, first they'll have a little bit of confusion about why they're there and what they're needing to do. But once you explain to them how the roadmap is being used to bring their needs into the process, they'll begin to open up, and it should ultimately get them to contribute to your roadmap plan to where they then have some ownership stake into the actual outcome of the roadmap.
Great, thanks you. Thanks, Ron. The next key benefit, evaluate and prioritize. A key benefit of prioritization is that it categorizes your initiatives and opportunities in 4 categories: do now, start now, consider, or defer. When you prioritize, you can focus on the high value items and the quick wins and optimize your time to value. You know, sometimes we have to adjust our plan. Roadmaps identify dependencies and trade-offs early and often. Ron, you'd like to add something on the examples shown?
Sure. So a lot of times what happens when you get into the process is it's not just about the technologies and the features of the technology that you need to roadmap. You also need to take into consideration things like data quality analysis, meaning, are there steps in the roadmap where the authoritative sources understand they may have to make adjustments to the quality of data they're contributing to the identity vault? So those are times and opportunities to actually say, we know that's not a blanket effort. It's something we know that's a milestone. We need to make sure that our data meets the needs of the overall process and plan.
Perfect, thanks. By providing the big picture of options and dependencies, roadmaps improve decision-making. Next benefit, aligning your IAM program and roadmap with your business strategy. All business strategies benefit from an actionable roadmap. In assessment, you're finding out where we are, what our challenges are. From where we're starting, we can find the gaps and where to put our efforts to get to where we need to be. Opportunities, how is what we're doing linking the technology to support the business? We prioritize these opportunities based on the business value. Substantiated value, this is the business case to substantiate the value of the program to the business. A roadmap is a visual representation of your assessment, opportunities, value, and priorities. Each roadmap is tailored to each organization so that the IAM program achieves outcomes aligned to the strategic direction. Your roadmap is a tool. It makes the business case and improves time to value. The next key benefit, focusing on the right vision to gain executive support and funding. When it comes to the bottom line, your IAM program needs to have widespread support. So how do you get all the stakeholders to see the value in the program? You go through the roadmap process using the methodology to identify requirements and opportunities. From there, you can develop and evangelize the solution and generate authentic demand. Authentic demand is when people understand what is offered and are asking when they can receive the benefits. This is the pivot point from something that is aspirational to something that is attainable. This is where the rubber meets the road and we can move our project forward. And that brings us to the questions. You can ask them in the question feature within GoToMeeting.
So Jim, it looks like we had a question come in. How long does a roadmap exercise take? So I'll go ahead and answer that question. Sure.
Go for it.
So road mapping is aligned with the organizational size and structure. The complexity depends upon how many systems are involved, and what your focus for the IAM solution may be, whether it's a customer IAM solution or a employee IAM solution or a combination of both. Typically for your smaller to medium-sized organizations, with anywhere from 10 to 20 systems, you may have to have a 2-week to 4-week engagement in order to get the right people aligned and have all the meetings coordinated and gather all the analysis data. Otherwise, we've seen the medium to larger organizations plan for a 6 to 8 week effort because it allows them to gather significantly more data from all of the stakeholders.
Great.
And
See, we have
yeah, does look like another question came in. Hang on just a minute. I've got a. It says roadmap versus TOM, main differences. I'm not familiar with the TOM acronym. I might need clarification on TOM.
It came in as an additional question. Target operating model.
So target operating model is, I assume, a methodology that's very similar to road mapping. I am not familiar with the target operating model framework. Jim, have you had any experience with that?
This is new to me.
So I would have to assume that a target operating model is a methodology for identifying what operational events need to occur in order to optimize the business process. That's an assumption on my part. I would have to say that a roadmap would be part of or a outcome of a target operating model exercise, because I'm assuming the target operating model is focused more on business process, whereas a roadmap, when it comes to IAM, is going to have both business process and technology components outlined as to when those technological components will be in place to support the operating model. But that is an assumption I'm making on my understanding of target operating model. Hope that answers the question.
And Gabriel, if it hasn't, we can get in touch and give you a better explanation. Thanks, guys, he says.
So, hey, this is Hano. So there's another question as well saying, is the roadmap for an identity and access management exercise the same as for a customer identity and access management exercise?
I'll go ahead and take that one. From a approach perspective, you'll have a different stakeholder constituency because you're mostly dealing with your marketing departments and your customer experience side for your B2C identity access management solutions. Whereas with an employee side, you're going to be dealing a lot more with HR and operational management folks. So while the exercise for gathering the analysis and gathering the data is fairly similar, and the methodologies for sizing the opportunities are similar, the objectives will be different between the two. For example, a customer side may focus more on single sign-on and getting the experience for the user to be able to get in easily, whereas over on the employee side, you might be more heavily focused on birthright roles and getting the accounts distributed across multiple systems. That may be higher priority than single sign-on. Hope that
building
helps.
off what Ron just said, yes, the methodology is very similar. It just has a slightly different focus. One of the biggest challenges with customer identity and access management is you have to have a robust registration process, and that process has to make sense, and that depends in some part on the customer group that you are trying to interact with. So is that customer group truly a B2C type model where you're dealing with consumers, or is it more of a B2B model where you're dealing with an ecosystem of partners that may have all be coming from known domains, which would change the design and structure of the end solution. So there's some variables there and some slightly different capabilities that you'll require, but the methodology is more or less the same. It's just that the focus areas change.
Thank you, Hanno. By the way, yeah, I was just going to say, and by the way, that is Hanno Ekdahl, CEO of Idenhaus. So thank you.
Sure thing, Ron. I see another question. Will the deck be available after the call? So we will send out a link with the recording. If you want to send us an email, you can send an email to info@idenhaus.com, and we will be happy to send you a copy of the slides separately as well.
Any more questions?
Yeah. Well, I have one last question. Yeah, I have one last question here. Is it possible, given today's environment, to do a roadmap remotely?
With everybody working from home.
And to answer
Want
that,
to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead, Hanno.
Well, I figured. I have an opinion on that one. Yeah, well, actually, we just delivered our first 100% remote identity and access management road mapping engagement, and it went very well. There were some lessons learned in terms of making it more efficient. One of the things that we've recognized is that with the current work from home environment, we actually have spread out the timeline a little bit. So 2-week strategy, identity management strategy, roadmap engagement might become 3 weeks, where we're spending, no more than 4 to 5 hours a day on the phone, doing the meetings and interviews we need to do in the first week. So there's some additional considerations to make with collaborating, but that project went very well. And, we've adapted our methodology a bit to handle the remote only working environment. I don't know, Ron or Jim, if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, that sums it up.
Yeah, I do have to say that whether or not you use Zoom or GoToMeeting and some of those methodologies, it's important to make sure that you set the stage for people to realize how easy it is to get into conversations, and people start over talking each other, and it becomes more difficult to capture the notes and stuff. So you have to set some ground rules. But basically, I found it to be a very good way of dealing with the current situation.
Okay, then, if that's all, before we leave, just wanted to share, for more information, you could go to idenhaus.com/blog or at the Idenhaus Consulting channel on YouTube and click subscribe. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Take care.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, all.
Thanks, all.